Hi there people, how you doing? So, the Mi 11 Ultra, I gotta say, it has a lot of good hardware. Whether you look at the display, the overall build quality, cameras, everything, it's very good. It's basically the bleeding edge that major flagship devices have to offer right now. Some of them are quite a bit better compared to many others, but I've seen this a lot in the comments as well. It's just that people are very skeptical about this device because of the software. I understand the concern. I too was quite skeptical back when I first pre-ordered the Mi 11 Ultra. I didn't really know what to expect from the software side of things. I knew the hardware was gonna be good. That was kind of guaranteed if you really think about it, but the software was definitely something that I was concerned about. Thankfully, my skepticism and all the concerns I had, most of them were baseless, because the MIUI 12 that I have, it's MIUI 12.5.2 I believe. I think that's the latest version on it. I checked today itself, no updates, and so basically it's about 1 billion times better compared to what we had last year. Now I did use the Mi 10 last year, and whichever version of MIUI it was, I think it was MIUI 10, but that one had some very weird complaints, like some of the most basic features were missing. Off the top of my head, I would say the app drawer was not there, there was no Google Feed, there was a good bit of lag and stutter going on, like just generally speaking, but that is not the case on the Mi 11 Ultra. Without question, it is much better. Like, if we were to put the two software versions that we had back then and the new one now, it would probably be unrecognizable. That's just quite simply how good it is now. Now there are some things here and there that you might have to change or you might have to just get used to, but generally speaking, I'm very pleased with MIUI 12 right now. But first and foremost, I think we should take a look at some of the more exclusive features we get from the Mi 11 Ultra, and trust me, there are quite a few really good ones, if you appreciate them of course. So right off the bat, I want to put a little disclaimer out there. I am a sucker for really good live wallpapers. I really like it when manufacturers go somewhat out of the way to give us really good wallpapers, and Xiaomi, well, they are right on top, because if you go into wallpapers on the Mi 11 Ultra, I mean, you kind of have to navigate your way through themes and then over to wallpapers. It adds a few steps, but when you click Super Wallpapers, the name is a little goofy, but the wallpapers are far from it. Because man, I understand at first you're gonna feel like, wow, there are only 5 of them, but the animations that we have, starting straight from the always on display to the lock screen and then all the way to the home screen, it is amazing, and there's no lag because of using it. It just works so well. And throughout the months that I've used this device, I gotta say, I've not switched to any normal wallpapers. That's just been how it is. And well, I do think that it will get repetitive after a certain point. Xiaomi has added one wallpaper. I believe the Snowy Peaks one was added after I got the device, so it's nice to see that they're still adding things, but even so, it's quite a few. Just 5 is gonna get old pretty soon, but even so, how many manufacturers actually go through all of this effort to add such amazing and well integrated stutter-free wallpapers here? It works so well. Like, whichever one you choose, each of them is distinct and they just look incredible in my opinion. Like, this is indeed my favorite feature in the Mi 11 Ultra, software wise of course. And speaking of favorites, I believe the next one is, you could say, firmly my second favorite. It's the display settings. Now you can find these options inside the color scheme option in the display menu, and there, if you click advanced options, well man, there is so much. Like, look at all those options. I don't think there exists any other flagship, like mainstream flagship, that gives us these many options, no question about it. Whether it's saturation, the value, which I believe somewhat stands for overall brightness and vibrance, I guess. But regardless, the best part about this is that you can customize so many aspects that essentially at the end of the day, you don't have to compromise and just think, okay, this particular mode, whether it's the vibrant mode or the saturated mode or anything as such, that is close enough to how I like my videos and my content to look like, that it's fine. You don't have to think like that, because here you have so many options. You can have proper granular control to the point that you can meet your taste Exactly, if you understand what I mean. Now, personally speaking, I think, in my opinion at least, and to my eyes, the Mi 11 Ultra's display is already so good and it looks so amazing that I just kept it on auto. I never really thought it was necessary to change it, but if you really want it, you could quite easily change every aspect here. But speaking of, there are certain options here that I think I should mention. The P3 color gamut and the sRGB mode are also present. If that is something you prefer, or if it is beneficial to the type of content you consume, definitely make use of those. And now let us move on to always on display, because this is also one of the things that Xiaomi does insanely well. Now last year I had this little complaint where the auto brightness of the always on display used to dim it a bit too much to the point that it didn't really look all that good. That's not a complaint here, it looks really nice, the auto brightness works perfectly. And so, with that complaint out of the way and resolved, I think it's time that we declare Xiaomi as the best always on display in terms of customizations. Now this was actually a title owned by Samsung previously because of just how many options they had. I think Xiaomi offers more, because if you think about it, just check out all of these options. You have analog clocks, and along with that, you have animations for those analog clocks, and there are a few of them here. And then if you didn't like that, and you just wanted a digital clock but you also liked animations, well, for that we have a dedicated kaleidoscope variant here, which just gives you some nice looking animations every time you go to the always on display, but you also get the benefit of a digital clock. Like these are all extra things, and if Xiaomi had not added it, I wouldn't be complaining about it now, would I? But the fact that they did, they also ensure that it works perfectly well. There are no stutters or lag when you use these options. I think that's really important, and indeed, they should deserve credit for that. Alright, now since we're already talking about the always on display, let's check out the rear display options as well. There's obviously not gonna be a lot here because it's just so tiny, and to be honest, it has limited functionality. A little bit too limited in my opinion. You can check out the camera review for that because I talked in a bit more depth in that video. But regardless, here you can have a few options. You can have a clock, you can have a few images, and you can decide on the timing. I kept it at 30 seconds because that's the maximum. You cannot actually keep it always on, which, given the battery capacity, I think we could have actually managed that. I'm not sure why Xiaomi is restricting it. For battery concerns, I believe that is obviously the case, but even so, if we could have it always on, that could be kinda interesting if you ask me. It would be quite worth showing off, at least. Now, it can be quite nice, when you have your phone face down, but having it always on, I think that would have improved the functionality even more, at least, having the option. So these were some of the best stuff that you could get from the Mi 11 Ultra in terms of the software. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that seems good, but it doesn't really work out all that well. I'm talking about the AI image engine. Now, obviously you'd think that there are a lot of options here, and clearly these things should work really well. Not so much, both in terms of how compatible they are with the content you consume, and how well they work as well. So firstly, I want to talk about the AI image enhancement. Now, this one it kind of works, I guess, but honestly, I could barely see any difference at all. Like, even when I was trying to pixel peep, it's very difficult, and it only works in the gallery, so there's that. Secondly, the AI HDR enhancement, that works only in galleries, and you can sort of see the difference, but even so, working only in the gallery, like, how long are you actually gonna view videos in your gallery alone? If this worked on YouTube and let's say Netflix and Amazon Prime, but unfortunately that's not really possible here. And the MEMC feature as well, this will basically interpolate frames, as you might know already, and give us a 60 FPS video for a 24 or 30 FPS one. But once again, it only works in the gallery, and the complaint is the same. If we cannot use it in other apps, it doesn't really make much sense to really use it and turn it on. So these features, they're essentially additional. Like, if you turn those off, you're not gonna take away from the experience of the Mi 11 Ultra, and it won't degrade at all. Like, I kept all of those off and I have no real issues with the device. But having those features there and them not working properly, that kind of hurts my soul, if you ask me. But that was basically it for the feature set that we have here. We have a lot of good stuff, no doubt about it, and as you can see, we have a Google feed, the overall experience is very smooth and stutter free. Now, as you notice already, I did change up the icon pack here. I used a more stock-like round look. I prefer that one. Now, you could go for the square ones as well. It didn't really look bad, but I prefer this one. And secondly, we also have an app drawer. I mean, this is a very, probably the most basic feature that you could expect from Android. And the fact that we didn't have that last year was just weird to begin with. Not just a complaint, but just an odd limitation. But thankfully, that's not the case now. We have a good app drawer, it works really well, and it actually manages to segment certain things like, communication apps, entertainment, photography, and so on. So that brings us to the end of the video, and I just want to put this out there. For those of you who are really skeptical about MIUI and feel like it's gonna, bring the overall experience down for the Mi 11 Ultra and you're not gonna get, what it's really worth, well, don't really worry about it, because that's not really the case. At least in my experience, it's been quite flawless. Like, compared to what I had expected, this is so much better. Now, I do realize some people have certain issues with the fact that Xiaomi decided to go for, the stock Google apps for the dialer and the messaging and all that. Honestly, I didn't really find it to be all that problematic. I know some people do, but just keep that in mind. You'll be getting the stock apps. Now, you could use something else if you wanted. So frankly, this is not the MIUI that I had honestly expected when I started using the device, and I'm surprised quite pleasantly to say that this is very good. Without question, the software is not pulling the Mi 11 Ultra down. At least in my experience, that's been the case. So if you have some other thoughts, obviously hit me up in the comments. But of course, if you enjoyed, definitely hit that like button, subscribe if you aren't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.